Bianca, a very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Now, Bianca, you're one of Australia's most loved media personalities.
Okay.
Well,
No.
that's how I've come to relate with you.
That's nice. Thank you.
And today we're talking about overcoming depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And through our summits, we've been looking at the particular subject through different lenses. And with you, we decided that, looking through the lens of states of relatedness and how you've come to relate to yourself through the journey of overcoming depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
So I guess the first thing that I'd love to ask is the very first time you realized you were having a panic attack or an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
Can you take us back to that time?
It was a point where I was sitting in a cafe with an ex-boyfriend, and he said to me something that I guess looking back now was something that was like taking a card out from the bottom of a deck and everything came crumbling down. But at the time, I didn't know what was going on. And we were sitting in a cafe and I was working at Nova at the time, and my life was everything was balanced perfectly. I had all the balls in the air, at least I thought I did. So busy. Television show, radio, writing, busy, hanging out with people like Richard Branson, limo rides to wanky events, red carpet, bullshit, whatever. Thinking it was all great. And it still to this day just absolutely blows me away that he said one thing and I just felt my world crash. I said, but if I leave my job, I won't be able to afford my mortgage. And he said, well, you could always sell your house. It was those words. I felt like the room was coming in on me. I absolutely freaked out. I had no idea what was going on. Everything was tingling. I couldn't breathe properly. Looking back now, it was just one hell of a panic attack. But at the time, if you've never had a panic attack before, you do think you're dying. That's why the emergency ward is full of so many people going, I'm dying. And it's like, no, you're just having a panic attack.
So you didn't realise that's what you were having at the time?
No, I didn't know what I was having. And look, looking back now, I probably had little bits of that happen before, but never related the two. My life was never the same after that. That was like the beginning of when I guess I was aware of the panic and the anxiety that I had been in denial of. It's almost like someone just opened the door and I went, whoa. And I guess it's because he said something to me that pulled down my house of cards, my perfectly placed house of cards, because in my mind, I had been brought up with, you have to have a house, you have to have this and all these particular things to be successful. And so him saying that was like, my mind went, but if you take away that one thing, then who are you? And that's what brought on the panic attack. And it was so intense. I think it lasted about 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, how do you describe that over a sort of like a 2-week period that you were short of breath that entire time? Or you'd come in and out of...
I came in and out, but I'd never had that feeling of absolute heightening of all my senses. And I remember going back upstairs because we were in a cafe below Nova in Piedmont. And I remember going back upstairs and just sort of walking around like I was in a movie, like a daze, like a whoa, like I felt drunk, but I hadn't had anything to drink. Subsequently, I drank a lot for those 2 weeks. I self-medicated totally. I was petrified of even going to see a therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counsellor because I thought I was going crazy. And I thought, I don't want it to get in the press. I don't want people to know. Now, look, so many years later, I have no problem people knowing. I happily and love talking about it. But back then, I didn't know what I was going through. So I didn't even know what to go and say to someone. So my partner at the time moved in with me because we weren't living together, moved in with me for those 2 weeks. I said, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. And I just remember sitting there and sort of trying to process what was going on. Eventually, after a few weeks, I went and saw someone and yeah, it was a process, but it was really scary.
And from what it sounds like, the words that he had asked you or the question he had asked you had actually really triggered
Yes.
what I kind of relate to as a safety and security threat.
Yep.
And that those words, triggered your sense of safety and security.
They did, and it surprised me because I didn't realise how much I put I didn't realise that how much owning a home was something that sort of obviously I saw as my status. You know, that was my ultimate Facebook status. I'm a homeowner. I felt like that was, I'd made it, I'd done it. I was 29 years old and I owned a $500,000 home in Newtown. I was like, I'm doing it. I'm doing the dream. And so when he said you could sell it, it was, it obviously just all went,
Yeah.
and I went, whoa. You know, and it was, yeah, it says a lot to me now about the facade that I was obviously putting up that I didn't even realise I was putting up.
So from that period, that 2-week period where, you know, you're on a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah.
From that period to actually reaching out and getting help or actually getting diagnosed with anxiety, was that straight after that 2-week period, or like what was the gap between that and actually reaching out for help?
I think I ended up going to see someone a few weeks after. It just took me a couple of weeks to just sort of get my head together. But I remember going into work and having to do my radio show. And I remember sitting there with our music director, who would come in every morning and just go through all the new songs and this is what we need to talk about. And I just remember her talking to me and it was like, I actually thought I was going crazy. And that's when I thought, this isn't right, this isn't normal, I need to go and talk to someone. And I remember seeing someone, but it took me a while to find someone that I liked, that I felt an affinity with. And that's one thing that I really try and get out to people is, if you go and see someone first up and you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. Because I beat myself up going, it must be me. He's great. He's a psychiatrist or psychologist. I can't even remember now what
I was going to ask you, was it a particular therapist or modality?
I want to say cognitive behavioural therapy. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, because that's what was suggested to me. Again, I'm going to confess something now. A lot of what happened then is a blur, because, and I still to this day probably need to go and see someone again to talk about that. I think I want to say post-traumatic stress disorder, but I don't necessarily want to put a label on it. I don't know. But my body definitely went through some type of trauma from that, and it's kind of blocked a lot of it out. So when people ask me questions, a lot of the time it's like asking a drunk person about a night out. I can just remember parts. And people look at me like, what's wrong with you? And I go, I don't know. I think having quite acute anxiety means that a lot of stuff happens and a lot of stuff happens that I just don't remember. And it's quite frightening actually. And even just talking about it now is very confronting, because I will have girlfriends say stuff to me like, do you remember that night we went out for dinner? And I go, not really. And they're like, oh, okay. Like, I don't. Right, but the therapy that I did have was good, but it took me a while to find someone that I felt comfortable with. And I don't see anyone at the moment, but I probably should go back to seeing someone because I really enjoyed it.
And in terms of, you know, other coping mechanisms in the interim, have you had to seek medication along with the therapy as well? I did at one stage. I thought, I'm not coping on my own. I need some help. And I had so many people on the camp of don't do medication. Do medication. Don't go anywhere near it. You'll never get off it. Do it for a little while and just let it help you get through the hump. And that's what I did. That's what I chose to do. So I was on Effexor for a while. I put on a bit of weight with it, so that kind of depressed me a little bit because I was like, oh God, I'm feeling shit and I've put on weight. And I know a lot of people deal with that. It's been 5 years. I haven't been on medication for 5 years. And I'm kind of happy with that. And I want to say I'm proud of that, but I don't want to say that in a way that makes people who are on medication think, feel guilty for because there's nothing wrong with that. My mum has been on Lexapro for the last 10 years and she says it saved my life. Not necessarily because she was suicidal. It saved her life because she feels normal, to her degree of normal, from the mania that she kind of got. So I think medication's fantastic if it's right for you. I think you just have to find what works for you. And a lot of people freak out because they'll take some medication that can make it worse, and it does in the beginning. You feel like pins and needles, like there's buzzing bees in your body. You're walking around going, can anyone tell I'm going crazy? And then finally it starts to work and you just get this calmness. But a lot of people will say, I'm not into medication because it numbs me. And I get a lot of people emailing me when I'm open and talking about it saying, I want to go on meds, but I don't want to be numb.
And it is a choice you have to make. It does numb you a little bit. That's the whole point of it. Otherwise, if you felt everything like you were feeling before, the meds wouldn't do anything.
But if it can become a bridge to you becoming more capable of processing and becoming mindful of what it is that you are feeling, even if it, you know, as you use the word numb, but if it sort of brings you centered enough that you can start, you know, from that mania, as you describe it, to being a little bit more in tune with yourself. Does it help to give you that space to actually start to become more mindful of your thoughts and your feelings and your sensations?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it did. It built that little bridge of sanity for a little while where I could go, you go from sort of this ball of, then there's the bridge of sanity of the medication, which can take you to that place where you go, okay, I can listen to this cognitive behavioural therapy. I can understand where this came from. Did I have manic parents? Did I have a mum that was bipolar? Was I an anxious child? Like it can just give you that breathing space to confront some of the things that may have got you to that place in the first place.
And did you have a mum with bipolar?
Well, Mum, she says to me, she goes, look, I've never been officially diagnosed with bipolar, but she pretty much has. I mean, it's a manic depressive kind of thing. Like she would ring me when I was, you know, young and say, look, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I might end up taking my own life. I just want you to know how much I love you. And I was 14 going, wow. That's where I got my kind of comic, take the piss, funny side, I think, because I'd say things like, oh, Mum, you can't kill yourself. There's a sale at Portman's and I need you to buy me a top on the weekend. So if you can just hold out for a few more days, and then she'd laugh, and then, you know, we'd sort of go, oh, let's not talk about suicide. And then, you know, that would be my way of coping. And that's been my way of coping my whole life, is to sort of laugh, crack a joke.
So, you know, even at such a young age, being put into situations where that would naturally spark a level of anxiety within you.
It must have.
Safety and security, yet again, being triggered.
Yeah, it must have. And, you know, if you look at that pattern, you think, well, there's a child that covered it all up. There's someone that kind of put on the happy face. I was a performing child. I was like a monkey, you know, put me out and I'll perform. And I think what happened that day in the cafe was that everything just went... It was like the elastic band. I did some incredible Ayurvedic, you know, in my journey, some Ayurvedic sort of therapy. And this beautiful Indian man described it. He said, you're like an elastic band and you just keep pulling and pulling. And eventually that band's going to snap. But for everyone, it's different. It snaps at a different spot for every human being. Yours snapped on the 29th of December, 2006, at 29 years of age, or whatever it was, when you sat in that cafe. That was just happened to be your day, when your bowl overflowed. And I just thought, yeah, that was my whole life of pretending I'm okay. Just my body went, I can't pretend anymore. I'm done. Enough. So in a way, I'm really glad. I'm glad that happened, because, you know, sometimes, what's that beautiful saying? You need to break open to become whole again. And it's such a cliche, but it's so true, because I've been on this incredible journey ever since that happened. And that's where and here I am now.
I know, you know, the journey, as you say, is amazing. And one of the things that I've read quite a lot that you've been writing about is a period of time where you actually had to completely remove yourself from media, anything social media, all the various platforms that are so stimulating to our senses and stimulating to our psyche and can be incredibly stressful. Yeah. And so you found that part of what was triggering your anxiety was all of the social media. So can you share what sort of that was for you?
Yeah, look, I had to get off for a while. I think I'm realising now, I did an online test. This is a self-diagnosis that I have undiagnosed adult ADHD, which I'm pretty sure is a correct diagnosis, because when I do something, I do it, I'm black or white. It's 100% or it's 0%. Which can be fantastic and has been great for my career and has been great for my love life and my friends, but it has also been disastrous for all of them as well. Things are either great or they're shit. So I found social media, for me, I became obsessed with it. I was on all the time, and I'm on it all the time now too, but I'm enjoying it. But back then I wasn't enjoying it. I felt like I had to be on it. I'd get this fear of missing out. I'd be looking at what other people were doing. I was going through a bit of a breakup at the time, and I think a lot of people do that. I was just on the phone to a girlfriend this morning who said, I'm back now. I'm back on Facebook. And I said, oh, she goes, I just needed a little break. And I think social media, although is incredible, has got us so connected. For people like myself and for people who sort of do have a bit of that obsessive compulsiveness about them, it can actually be quite dangerous.
Detrimental.
Yeah, because you're on it. And I've got a thing now where I listen to meditation on my phone every night as I'm going to sleep. The problem with that is I've got my phone next to my bed. And I found that I'm back on it again. I literally fight with my hand. Oh, you do not need to know what's going on Instagram right now. No one cares. Go to sleep. I just have one little quick look. You know, and then it's an hour later. So I think self-imposed bans on social media can be really good for people with anxiety. I know social media has made a lot of people that I connect with my Instagram page and Facebook, has made it worse for them because they're seeing people's lives so much shinier than they really are. And I'm a big believer and I'm a big pusher of being really real on Instagram. So I might put up a shiny picture of us filming today and go, oh, look how fabulous we all look, everything's great, there's cameras. But I'll also put up a day when I can't get out of bed and I'm having a shit day and I've got no makeup on and it's not such a good day. I think we need to share the highs and the lows.
The realness.
The realness, the goods, the bads, the yucks, the uglies, whatever.
Because that's the real reality of life itself.
It is. It is. And we're obsessed with perfection and that's what social media unfortunately is making us guilty about. Yeah.
So for you, how long was a period of coming off social media? How long did you find yourself you needed to come away from that to really find the balance again?
6 months.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
So
about
it
6
was a good
months.
stint.
It was good.
Yeah.
I loved it, but I also found difficult with what I do with media because I would say to people, oh, I promised my friend I'd plug his band. Can you do me a favour? Can you just get on and let them know that this band's playing at this pub? So it's sort
You
of
had to delegate quite a lot in
I
that 6
did.
months.
And I'd say to people, tag me at that restaurant, tag me there because I promised my mate I'd go and try his pizzas. You know, all that. It ended up being hard. I think it's good if you can go off and just go off and not think about it. But because I work in the media, it was a little bit of, it was hard.
So over that period of time of recognizing that you had a very, serious condition and that needed to be managed and that, through various research that you had done, through the therapy that you had done, what sort of lifestyle changes did you find that you had to make in order to support yourself and manage yourself in the future?
Pardon me. Look, at the time, I didn't do anything when I first got diagnosed with generalised anxiety disorder because I was petrified. So I don't remember actually doing anything. I think I kept drinking, I kept going out, I kept partying because I just didn't know what to do. And I don't think I really had great advice around me. I don't really think I had the right people around me. No, don't get me wrong, I had beautiful family around me, but they were a bit like, because I'm such a hurricane of a person, I don't think they knew how to say, maybe you should just chill a bit or whatever. And like, no one really kind of said that. I did go to a health retreat. I went to the Golden Door. That actually did help. I went there for 10 days. I've never really been a retreat kind of a person, but I thought, okay. It was great because I did have to stop everything and chill for a while. So that was actually forced stopping for a while, so that was actually good. But now, years later, I realise exercise, trying not to drink too much. And I go through stages with drinking because drinking really makes my anxiety worse. Like I will literally wake up in the middle of the night with pins and needles, having mild panic attacks. Right. But because I get them so often now, they don't scare me anymore, which is a really nice place to be. I just they do, but I can kind of breathe myself out of it and go, just having a panic attack, you're absolutely fine, breathe. I do my breathing exercises. And
so that in itself, what you're sharing with us right now is an incredibly powerful, message for other people that are still in a place where their anxiety attacks really, create a lot of fear, and a lot of terror within them. So, the fact that they can be hearing right now from you who still experiences them, but it experiences them in a completely different light. So your states of self-relatedness has got to a point where it's almost like you can talk yourself through a panic attack. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and you know what? I'm really proud of myself because I went on a trip down to Tasmania and I was very luckily given this great trip on one of those little tiny planes, and I didn't even think about it, but I got in the plane and it literally seated 6 people very tight. And as the plane started to take off, I went, oh my God, I am going to die. I'm having the worst panic attack, and I've never had a panic attack flying before. And I went, oh my God, I'm going to ruin everyone's trip because I'm going to have to yell out to the pilot, we can't go. And I thought, you can't ruin these people's trip. This has cost them all a fortune. So I breathed my way through it and I kept myself busy, and I took lots of photos and I kept filming. And as long as I kept filming and taking photos and breathing, and I had my bark rescue remedy and I was like spraying like a bandit, I got through the flight. But what that's done now, and I've read that this can happen to people, is that that's now made me terrified of small planes, and I never used to be that person. And I've read about people who won't get on planes or can't fly because they had one panic attack, it scared the shit out of them, and now they're like, I can't. So I had another trip recently and I had to do a helicopter flight, and I thought, okay.
That's even smaller.
I know, but funnily enough, because there's so many because it's so much more windows,
it feels more open.
It feels more open. I thought, you can do this, and I'm really proud of myself because I literally sat there and I said to my boyfriend, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I may have a really bad panic attack, but I am doing this flight. It's over Uluru. It's been on my bucket list since I was 10 years old. I'm doing this flight. I'm doing it. And I breathed my way through it, and I'm so proud of myself because I didn't have a panic attack, but I kept feeling my body go into that place of, you're about to. Mm-hmm. And I just kept breathing and going, no. And I really do believe you can talk yourself out of a panic attack. But I don't want to say that in a way that makes people think, oh, but I try to talk myself out and I can't. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are some that are so bad you can't. I had one the other night that I couldn't. That's why I just had to keep breathing. But I think my body just went into it. You're on it now. You can't get off. You're just going to have to see this flight through. And I did. And I'm so happy that I did the whole flight. I literally, as the helicopter landed, I burst into tears. I said, I did it. I didn't have a panic attack. So it's a good feeling when you can beat it, when you can overcome it.
Yep. So we've been speaking so far, you mentioned exercise as being a lifestyle habit that you've since taken up as a way of self-managing your anxiety. Breathing is another thing that you've mentioned has been a really major role in you being able to center yourself and literally breathe through.
Yep.
You've mentioned mindfulness in terms of how you speak to yourself, the language you use, and how you're relating to yourself as you're going through that panic attack.
Yep.
Are there certain words that you use to calm yourself when you're breathing?
Yeah, I just say things like, everything's going to be okay. You know this is just a panic attack. I read a great book. It's a cartoon kind of book by Bev Aisbett, and she's done this whole series called Living with It. And it's living with panic attacks, living with anxiety, living with depression. And I think they're aimed at young adults, but they're brilliant because when I read them, it says to take the mickey out of it, to not let it be serious. Mm-hmm. Laugh at yourself, go, oh, here we go. I'm having a panic attack. Oh, here we go. The heart's going to start beating 100 miles an hour now. Here we go. Oh, dramas. And make it funny, like laugh at it. And it takes away the...
kind of diffuses the intensity.
Yes, and that tends to work for me. So I go, oh, all right, the heart's beating. And I've been taught, and I don't know where or how or where I read this, but to mentally go through what your body's doing. Oh, okay, now my heart's beating really fast. Okay. Oh, my chest is tight. Okay, well, your bra's probably really done up too tight anyway, but all right. And I just talk myself through it, and I bring it back to the basics, and I go, you're driving. It's a really beautiful day. The sun's out. Everything's good. You've got your health. You've got a beautiful family. Breathe. This will pass. And usually that's all it takes. Just bringing it back to the basics of glass, hand, because you can tend to get to these levels where you think, no, hold on, it's all good.
So what I'm hearing you actually say there is the power of actually bringing yourself back into the present moment.
Yes, the
into
present
the here
moment.
and the now.
In the now, because they say anxiety is only when you think about the past, and anxiety is only when you're panicking about the future. But right this very second, you have a choice in that moment whether you choose to be anxious or not. In saying that, I didn't choose to have the panic attack, but what I mean is, and I don't mean to generalise it, but you can breathe your way through that and acknowledge it and try not to let it have that much power over you. Yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the power of bringing your awareness and your mindfulness back into the present moment, whether that's, you know, you gave a beautiful description of becoming just present and aware of what's immediately around you.
Yeah.
And then do you ever use any sort of bodily mindfulness techniques to bring yourself back into your body as a way of grounding yourself?
I do a breathing technique that I think a lot of people do. It's very common. It's the breathe in for 6, hold for 5, breathe out for 6.
Okay.
I say a lot of people only because a lot of people I know tend to do that when they're sort of getting panicky.
So you breathe in over
Breathe
6
in
seconds.
over 6 counts.
And then actually hold your breath for 5 counts?
Hold your breath for... It's a yogic technique, actually. We do it at the end of a yoga class.
Okay.
So a lot of people who do yoga would know that too. But it's at the... Yeah, you breathe, you hold it... You try and hold it for as long as you can, really, but not too long. And then you've got to let it out for the same count. And if you do that 3 or 4 times, your body can't help but just start to calm down because the breath is everything. So your body can't help but go, oh, okay, it's all okay.
So the breath slows, the thoughts slow,
Yep.
the energy slows,
Yep. And just
you...
come back to a calm place. I also have CDs in my car. I'm so old and daggy, I still have CDs with mini meditations on them. Mm-hmm. So there's ones that go for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. I haven't listened to them for a while, but I keep them in my car. And if I'm in between meetings and I'm like, oh, I'm having one of those days where I'm a ball of anxiety, if I've rocked up early to something or if I'm in the car park at Woolies, I go, you know what, I've got 5 minutes. And I follow a guided meditation. And a lot of people who have just started meditating, they go, I can't sit still. And I said, look at me. I'm 100 miles an hour. Do you think I can sit still? Mm-hmm. I need guided as well. I've done transcendental meditation. I did a course with Kate Cliff and I loved it and it was amazing. But I still struggle to just do meditation with a mantra because my mind just starts monkey mind, monkey mind. Mm-hmm. So I find guided is really good for me because I'm just listening to someone's voice and they're saying, you know, breathe in, da-da-da, and I can follow that. And then I find after about 10 minutes, I think, oh, okay, I don't feel as anxious now. So I always say to people, if you're just starting out with meditation, do a guided one. There's heaps that you can download and there's so many out there. Yeah. Great.
So I'm also curious about other parts of, you know, one's lifestyle that can really help us to manage that anxiety state.
Yep.
Have you found that you've needed to change anything around food in particular? You mentioned alcohol before and keeping that down to a minimum. But have you realised that you've needed to change anything within your diet at all?
Absolutely. And look, I can sit here right now honestly and say to you that I haven't stuck to it and I need to because that's how I know my anxiety's back at the moment. I've really struggled probably last week and I just know I can just feel it. I just get this ball of heat and butterflies and even if everything's going great, my mind still goes, everything's shit. And I'm going, no, it's not. It's actually great. Stop it. You know, I do talk to myself a lot, but the food that I'm eating, I'm now starting to eat a lot cleaner, but when I eat crap, I don't feel good. I think...
So what's crap for you?
Well, what I mean is I'm not meant to have gluten and I'm not meant to have wheat and I'm not meant to have dairy. I've actually done a blood test and it creates a lot of inflammation in my body. Mm-hmm. And I did stick with that for a while, but it's hard. It is difficult. Life becomes busy, all of a sudden you're eating really clean, but then you go away for a holiday and then you have a Big Mac and then you go, it's all stuffed, and then you come back and you just eat your normal food again. And
when you're eating cleanly, you notice the difference? When you cut out the gluten and the dairy?
I did for a while, because I'm trying to get pregnant. I tried to get really clean anyway, just to stop my body from being inflamed, all that kind of stuff. I did notice a drop in my anxiety. Yeah, I did. But it's funny because I know what works. It's like, well, we know what to do. We know what food to eat to lose weight. We know what, I know if I drink alcohol, I'm going to have a headache the next day. But, sometimes life happens and you go, okay, I'll get back on track tomorrow.
And it all comes back to that, the states in which we relate to ourselves in those stressful moments.
Yeah.
And
I'm a comfort eater and
a
comfort drinker, big time. And I know a lot of people do that. They self-medicate. And it's not good. It makes everything worse. And most people know that. But at that moment, when you've had a big day and you're stressed and you get home, a glass of wine, it's like, Like I can literally feel my anxiety slip away with a glass of wine. So I am guilty of that. Yeah.
And so are you looking into any other lifestyle changes moving forward that you are willing to commit to? Or are you willing just to commit to continue practicing what you've already shared with us?
I think I'm just going to keep practicing what I've shared. I would like to try and meditate every day. I do listen to one as I go to sleep, but I'd actually like to do the 20 minutes during the day. I was doing that for a little while. Again, life gets busy and you think, oh, it's been 5 days, I haven't meditated. I do notice, and I'm trying to be a practice what I preacher because, with my Instagram and Facebook, and I'm so open and I write a lot about anxiety and depression, and I do get a lot of people coming to me for advice, and I'm so good at giving advice. I'm not great at taking it, and I feel like such a hypocrite because I'll say, you need to be meditating every day, and then I'll go, I'm not actually doing it myself at the moment, but I know that it works when you do. I feel guilty.
And you mentioned sleep before.
Yeah.
What, have you found a big difference again in if you get enough sleep, not enough sleep? What have you found just right for you?
Sleep's so important. If I don't, I'm stating the obvious, but to be sleep deprived for me, and that's why I feel for young mums, or any mum, not just young mums, when you're sleep deprived, when you've got a baby and you're going through all that, I cannot imagine how difficult that must be, because I know my anxiety is through the roof if I'm tired. I'm a nightmare. I go into denial because it gets so bad. In order to get through the day, I just have to pretend it's not there and just put on a smile and go, everything's fine. But underneath there's a cracked veneer. So sleep is so important. Funnily enough, I've always been able to sleep. Even, I've only had insomnia probably in the last couple of years, occasionally, sporadically. I'm not really... It's one thing, and I remember reading about Mia Friedman when she had her really bad anxiety that went for 12 days. She said her sleep was fine, and I was the same. I could go to bed and sleep. That was like my respite. That was like, I can sleep. But I think you've got to try and get 8 hours. I'm a different human with 8 hours. I'm nice to be around. Anything under that, I'm not that great.
Oh, look, I totally know the same feeling when it comes to sleep. I'm somebody who absolutely needs my 8 hours to, function. Yeah. And not just 8 hours sleep, but quality sleep.
Yes.
I think some people think that so long as they get their 8 hours, they're fine, but it's also about the quality of sleep whilst you're asleep.
Absolutely, it is. I think, and I know if I've been out drinking or having a big night, I'll have my 8 hours, but I'll wake up and feel, so it's not quality,
So Bianca, can you tell us about your Instagram page and how your experience is now, helping so many other people on their own journey?
I have a confession about my Instagram page, actually. When I first started it, the reason I started it was because I wanted to share my anxious journey, but I was kind of a bit nervous sharing it as Bianca Dye, the media personality. I'm guilty of being fearful of the stigma that I now am so adamant that we try and get rid of. This was a couple of years ago when I started it. I didn't hide that it was mine, but now I shout it from the rooftops and I'm proud of it. But I started at Anxiety Free because I just wanted somewhere where I could just put up stuff that made me feel better about my anxiety. And so when I was scrolling through Instagram and I'd see fun things, or I want to write a book about it. So I've started to collect over the last few years articles, things I've torn out of books, CDs, and I've taken snapshots of great posters that have made me feel calm, or just anything to do with anxiety. I've got this great little library, and I just wanted an outlet for that. But I didn't want to spam my page with too much anxiety, depression stuff, because I thought, I don't know how that will go with my profile, and will it stop me getting work, and all that, which I'm just so glad that, that's why I wanted to be a part of this summit, because I just think the more people with profiles talk about it, the more it just becomes the norm.
And it takes the stigma
away, and it just becomes, that's normal, because I'm not crazy and I'm not an abnormal human being. I'm probably more normal than most with what I go through. So the page started with me just wanting to have a place where people could go, and it's grown. It's great. It's nearly getting close to 10,000 followers, and I love it because it's a really lovely little community of people. And the hard part is I'd like to answer everything personally, and I quite often get a bit overwhelmed, and it gives me anxiety because I get a lot of private messages, and a lot of them are young kids. And I think, okay, I'm not a doctor and I'm not in any way qualified to give some type of advice. So that's why now it's very blatantly put on my page, media personality Bianca Dye. So people know, oh, this page is run by a media personality. This is not a professional or anything. This is just me saying this is my journey. Maybe this will make you feel less alone on your journey. And that's sort of my catchphrase, because that's sort of what people say to me all the time. Thank God you said that. I'm so glad you said that. That's how I feel. I don't feel so different now. I don't feel so crazy now. With the kids who send me messages, I just straight away will say, please go and speak to an adult. Please speak to mum and dad. And I'm followed by a lot of people from overseas too. So sometimes it gets hard because I'll sort of direct them to Beyond Blue or Lifeline or Headspace, which is fantastic for young adults. But a lot of them are overseas. But it's good. I love it. It's a fun page, and it's a bit naughty. I kind of take the mickey out of anxiety too. I kind of stick my finger up at it and go, stuff you, anxiety. But then some posts are very personal and very, very real and raw, and others are just, it's how I'm feeling. It's like my diary.
And it's keeping it real for everyone else out there that is on their journey with it, for whatever that might be at that time for them.
Exactly.
So what would you say has been your greatest gift in coming to terms with anxiety, actually, going public with it and no longer living in fear of what that might mean to your status? What's been your greatest gift?
Look, in saying that, I do sometimes fear. I do think, oh, will I be labelled? I had an old boss that said, oh, be careful you don't become, the anxiety girl. And I remember at the time going, is that such a bad thing? As in, I have enough belief in my talent as a radio announcer, broadcaster, TV presenter, writer, but that's not who I am. That doesn't define me. I look at my life as a big pie, and that anxiety is just a slice of my pie. I'm also funny and warm and compassionate. I'm a good friend, I'm loyal, I'm generous, and anxiety should just be a slice of all of that. And that's why we need to talk about it more and not go, oh, she's got anxiety or she's got depression or she's crazy. It's like, well, no.
It's just an aspect
it's just an aspect of who I am. I think the greatest gift is that I love the fact that I can talk about it openly. I get uncomfortable though when people go, oh, you're so brave. And I think, oh, I don't feel brave. Brave is the girl I just spoke to on email who goes to her job every day and has cancer and is going through chemo and hasn't told her boss because she's scared she'll lose her job. Do you know what I mean? And that's real and that's brave. She's brave. Yeah. I'm a media personality that just has come out and talked about my depression and anxiety. I don't think that's brave. But
it takes courage though.
It does. I guess it does. But I think, Jo, because I've lived my whole life as the too much information person, I've always been the one that overtalks or spills the beans, or I'm the loud one in the room or whatever. I don't feel that I'm doing anything that's that brave for me, because I feel like it's my job to be honest about how I feel. I don't want to be fake. I don't want to be the girl on Instagram that's always going, oh, look at my new shoes, I'm beautiful, whatever. I want to be the one that goes, hey, today's a really bad day. Can't get out of bed today. I don't want to face the world. So I think the greatest gift for me is knowing that if I can talk about it, and I am talking about it, that I make other people feel less alone, and that they can then talk about it with their family or their friends and go, hey, you know how Bianca said she gets those panic attacks on the plane? Well, I get those as well. And if that can start a conversation and then that helps them, then that's great.
Perfect.
That helps.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I have one more question.
Yep.
And as I'm sharing with all of our speakers, it's a question that's being asked to all of them.
Yep.
And what that question is to really bring our audience constantly back to the realization that, we are what we think, and that our mind believes what we continuously tell it. And then our biology and our physiology gives us an experience of that to reinforce that.
So powerful.
So if we know how powerful the I am statement is, what would your I am statement be to yourself every day that would continue to build and help you become who you want to be? What would your I am be?
I think it would be, I am okay with where I'm at right now. Because I tend to be always thinking I need to be better. I need to be doing this. Why haven't you got another best-selling book? A first. I have a book, but it wasn't a bestseller. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you Oprah yet? And I beat myself up. So I think the best thing for me is to just say, I am happy with where I am right now. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Cool.
Bianca, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
you for
you.
sharing your journey with us and
Thank
inspiring and giving hope to so many people.
I hope so. I hope I have. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hope I didn't talk too much.